First of all, I'd like to thank my dear friend Narendra for inviting me to this distinguished gathering. It is truly my privilege and honor here today. And I have to say that I have already learned tremendously from all the distinguished speakers and interactions, both on and off the program. And Narendra, I saw that you were going to put me actually on the hot seat. This is what you call it, because China is the largest energy consumer worldwide. But thank you. You removed me from that hot spot and allow Mr. Raymond Vickery to take that position later on. Well, and in the remaining time, Narendra, I will try to pretend to be an energy specialist and share with you some of my observations of China's energy, its policy, as well as future trajectory and the impact on the world, and so on and so forth. So basically my presentation will focus on three areas, four areas. First is energy consumption in China, the landscape, broader landscape. Secondly is China's energy policy, how it evolves over time. And thirdly, what are the determining factors of China's energy policy? And lastly, and how does it impact the world? So to begin with, I would like to share, I think, let's look at some of the key statistics, and that will give us a sense of where does China stand in terms of the energy, global energy landscape. So actually, in the year 2010, China overtook the United States as the largest energy consumer. And now, so far, China still remains the world's largest energy consumer and accounting for 23.2% of global energy consumption, and contributing to a 3.6% of global energy demand growth in 2017. And also, in 2017, China accounted for 28.5% of global energy-related carbon emission as well. And also China's oil consumption now has reported 12,798 barrels per day, which are accounting for 23% of total world oil consumption. And China also surpassed the United States in annual gross crude oil imports in 2017, and by importing 8.4 million barrels per day. So this is another picture, give us a sense of, well, China's now overall energy dependent rate is actually quite high, 38.8% last year. So which means China depending on the global market heavily for energy supply and consumption. And the statistics also shows that last year, China's total energy consumption is 4.49 billion tons of coal equivalent, or TCE. It is 2.9% of rise compared to the year of 2016. And the picture on the right give us a sense of where does China stand in terms of global coal consumption. So it is very clear China still nowadays by far the largest consumer in terms of coal, and then followed by United States, India. And this is another data which shows actually the past 10 years, past decade, the distribution of domestic consumption, energy consumption in terms of coal. We can see that there's relatively decline, or actually quite a substantial decline of the coal consumption in the past 10 years. And in terms of oil consumption, relatively stable, and the natural gas consumption catches up. And in terms of a clean energy, alternative renewable energy, it rises rapidly. And almost, I think, it's about to catch up with oil consumption. And this is another picture. It's a longer historical perspective, goes all the way back to the 1960s. So data from 1960 up to 2015. And again, it shows the distribution of domestic consumption. And it shows actually we can see from there is also the consumption of coal and oil peaked around the year 2008. So to conclude in this data is that I think by 2050, China's primary energy consumption in terms of the world percentage will be 23%, and China will also be the biggest consumer for primary energy. And the clean energy will be the main part of China's energy consumption by 2030. And after 2045, China will take up, the clean energy consumption will make up more than 50% of China's total energy consumption. And the coal consumption will actually has peaked around 2008 and will be replaced by clean energy after 2030. And the crude oil consumption will peak around 2030, and natural gas demand will rise very fast by 2040s. And the electricity demand will also rise steadily and hit 11.8 trillion kilowatt, but coal power generation percentage will steadily decrease. And now I move to the second part of my presentation, which I will look at the evolution of China's energy policy. And broadly speaking, China's energy policy can be divided into like three periods of time. The first stage is after the establishment of the People's Republic of China, 1949, and because of remember this context of the Cold War and the containment strategy and embargoes imposed by the West, led by the United States. And therefore, China had to rely on pursue a so-called self-reliance strategy, aiming at build China's own heavy industry. And the second phase is when China started opening up and reform, is in the late 70s and early 80s. China has been pursuing this so-called multi-dimensional energy strategy, which aims at building up the regulatory policy frameworks and also the pricing mechanism, as well as basically build up energy market in China. And the third phase is mid-2000 until now, as China's energy demand continue rapidly rise, and the new strategy really put an emphasis on improving the energy efficiency as well as conservation. Therefore, energy efficiency really comes first in this latest phase of China's energy policy. And there is a very important document I would like to share a little bit with all of you, which is the so-called the energy guideline issued by the Chinese government as part of the 13th five-year plan in 2016. And in that document, Chinese government announced so-called 4 revolutions and 1 cooperation. And the 4 revolutions, meaning the 4 identify the revolutions in energy consumption, supply, technology, as well as institutional development. And 1 cooperation means the pursuit of comprehensive cooperation in international arena. And the mission is to build a modern energy system with clean, low carbon, high safety, and high efficiency, characterized by high safety and high efficiency. And also, now China is the largest producers of carbon, I think, emissions worldwide. And because of that, this has been part of China's energy objectives, policy objectives by 2020. So this guideline also outline specifically six objectives by 2020. The first is by 2020, the total energy consumption below 5 billion ton of coal equivalent, TCE. Second, try to improve China's energy self-sufficiency rate over 80%, and also steady increase in the primary energy supply. So at least 4 billion tons of TCE supply every year. And fourthly, adjusting the structure of energy consumption to increase the proportion of non-fossil energy consumption to over 15% by 2020. And fifthly, to improve the efficiency of energy system, to improve the unit GDP energy consumption to 50% lower than that of the year 2015. And lastly, the goal is to pursue a unit energy carbon emission decrease to 80% lower than that of the year 2015. And this is just another table in a more detailed, specific way to look at energy security structure, efficiency, etc., and different indicators for this China's energy guideline plan. So now, the third part of my presentation. So what factors really can explain or determine China's energy policy? I think broadly speaking, 4 factors stand out. First is the energy structure. Really because energy structure determines China's energy consumption distribution. And especially in the early days of the People's Republic of China, when China developed its heavy industry, it's really pursue a heavy industry-oriented industrial structure that determines that coal, the fact that coal becomes the main source of energy consumption. But now, as China is transitioning from a export-driven economy to a consumption-driven economy, there's bound to be the trend is that more emphasis we put on the clean energy and renewable energy. And second structural factor is the distribution of energy reserves in China. Nowadays, China has the coal reserve count. It's over a little bit over 1 trillion ton, and there's also 93 billion ton of oil reserves. Natural gas is 38 trillion cubic meters. And this is across different provinces where does coal production, crude oil production, and natural gas production comes from. And the third factor is supply-demand condition. It actually becomes more favorable over time. And we know that as a shale gas revolution, which has greatly boosted oil and gas production in the past few years, and also as the maturing up of the liquefied natural gas production. So the supply-demand condition actually becomes more favorable. That's another very important factor in shaping China's energy policy. And lastly, of course, is a technological development in, especially in the new and clean energy sector. This is a picture shows about the coal import and export. So it's very, so Australia, I think Indonesia stand out as the largest exporter of coal exporter to China. And in terms of world coal consumption, I think China by far stand out as largest consumer of world of coal and natural gas. And I think it's Australia. The liquefied natural gas import is largest supplies from Australia, and then followed by Qatar, etc. So this is another picture of China's energy import and export picture. And this is another table shows that in the past decade or so, there is very steady growth in Asia-wide, region-wide, the renewable energy production, especially in the past decade. The picture is very clear. And China now has vigorously trying to develop new and renewable energy. So in 2017, almost half of global renewable energy investment actually came from China, totaling in $125.9 billion US dollars. And this is actually more than double the 53.3 billion that China invests in renewables in 2013. And China is becoming the largest market in the world for renewable energy. And it is estimated that 1 in every 4 gigawatts of global renewable energy will be generated by China by 2040. And in 2017, China consumed 240 billion cubic meters of natural gas, making up of 6.4% of China's total energy consumption. And to further promote the natural gas consumption, China actually has pledges to source about 10% of its energy demands from natural gas by 2020. And China is bound to surpass EU and become the largest natural gas importer very soon. And over the past decade, China has also emerged as a global leader in wind and solar photovoltaic energy, or PV energy. China's electricity generated by wind power accounted for now about 2.1% of its total consumption in 2012, not very big compared to 3.7% in the United States and 9.4% in Germany. However, by 2015, China accounted for 1/3 of global wind power capacity. So in the past few years, I think China's the wind power capacity has grown rapidly. So now, in last year, it surged to 16,367 megawatts, and which is about 10% growth year on year. So in solar PV, China is both a leading supplier and a consumer, and China has dramatically increased its production solar panels. And now China is the largest producer of solar panels, and it also surpassed Germany's solar power generation capacity. And China is also turning to nuclear power to try to decrease its reliance on fossil fuels. So as of July this year, 2018, China operated about 61 nuclear power reactors, which generate 38,419 megawatts of energy. And since last year, China has trailed only France and the United States in terms of nuclear electricity generation. And China's 13th five-year plan also reaffirmed its commitment to nuclear energy and outlined a plan to construct 40 additional plants by 2020. Another very important, I think, aspect to look at China's energy policy as it is going forward is now its emphasis on the new energy vehicles, or NEV, production in China. China has put great efforts in trying to develop an NEV and using a variety set of combination policy instrument market stimulus packages. So NEV is now one of China's designated as one of China's 7 strategic industries. And China's NEV sales has actually become number 1 in the past 3 years in a row. In 2016, it's 500,000, and last year it's 800,000. And estimated the sales will be 1 million this year, and by 2020 will hit 2 million. So it's going to be a huge market, and China also now has the biggest NEV market share in the world. And China will become the largest energy producer, consumer, and of course also it aims to try to develop catch up in terms of energy technological development as well. So China's energy policy definitely will directly affect the world, the global aim of pursuing a low carbon emission energy consumption structural change, and as well as old and new energy prices. So I will conclude here. So China now is pursuing a higher degree of opening up and more reforms. So the goal is trying to further integrate the Chinese economy with the global economy, with more market access for foreign investors, and basically an improvement of investment environment, and further improvement of intellectual property protections, etc. And there are a set of very bold policy initiatives have been announced, further opening up of virtually all sectors, including financial sector, manufacturing, and as well as energy sectors. And in fact, now, in terms of energy industries, some leading international oil and gas retailers now have entered into Chinese market already. So to conclude, I think China, the picture or the vision China wants to pursue is that really want to team up with all partners worldwide, together try to seize the shared opportunity and produce a success story that will help not only sustain more robust and greener global economic growth, but also deliver a better and a more prosperous world for everyone and the future generations to come. With that, I will conclude my presentation. Thank you.